Talk about kicking people when they're down. Our flood victims have been through absolute hell. Often, all that's kept them going is the sure belief they could pick up the pieces and start again. But the big insurance companies have been doing everything they can to worm their way out of paying up. It's in the fine print, and it all comes down to the F word. F for flooding, that is.
Let's go.
This is it.
This is it, our home.
What's left of it?
Yes.
Every day since January's heartbreaking floods in Ipswich, Jeff and Susan Woolett come back to clean up what was their family home for 30 years.
I had to kick the door in to get it open, and I froze.
Just at the side.
It's devastating.
I couldn't believe it.
They took video that day to support their insurance claim, but were astonished to find out a few days later that the policy they thought covered their home will pay them nothing. Their only major asset was suddenly worthless, and now they're fighting the decision.
No one can tell you how long it's going to take, what's going to happen. This is what the insurance companies don't know.
They expect everybody else in Queensland to live like this and put up with this because they're looking at their bottom line.
Jeff's a truck driver, Susan works in childcare, but they retired the month before the floods and bought a caravan for a long holiday, never dreaming it would end up as the only roof over their heads. Jeff didn't realise how fragile and depressed his wife was until a public meeting in Ipswich last week.
I'm one of those people, I'm not ashamed to admit it, that...
While she was talking, you could hear a pin drop. And during the course of that talk, she said, I was at my counsellor's yesterday, and the counsellor asked me,
Do you have feelings that you'd like to commit suicide? For the first time, honestly, there with my husband, I said yes.
And then I knew how bad this was getting.
And you were shocked?
Yep. Until somebody does that to you, or says that about themselves, you got no idea what it does to you.
This is the flood damage rarely spoken about. The trauma suffered by hundreds of homeowners fighting insurance companies.
Now it's 11 weeks. How can it take 11 weeks to decide what sort of water it was?
The long-serving mayor of Ipswich, Paul Pasali, says the disaster was bad enough. But what's happening now is almost more shocking.
Some have been paid out, some haven't been paid out, and it's all on definition of what a flood is.
But they're all affected by the same water.
The same water. It came from the same place and it's affected the same houses.
In insurance language, a flood depends on where the water comes from. If it comes down the street or overflows from your gutters or up from the storm drain and floods your house, then it's storm damage. Most insurers will cover that. Then there's flash flooding. If the water overflows from a creek or a river within a short space of time, usually within 24 hours, that's flash flooding, and some policies will cover that. But if the water's released from a dam, such as the Wivenhoe, and comes into a river like this and inundates the city, but it takes a few days to get there, then that's flood. And most insurers say, no way.
Brian and Marion, Glenn.
The mayor took us to family after family who thought their homes were covered. Goodness gracious. Brian Lawrence has a policy with Amy.
I thought we were covered for building damage.
In the event of a flood?
In the event of a catastrophe.
One son's bedroom.
A few suburbs away, Alan and Lynette have flood coverage with real insurance. Now they've seen the fine print, which reads to a maximum of $15,000.
These people genuinely thought they were covered for $194,000.
Yep.
And it wasn't until their house was destroyed they're not covered.
Turned out to be 15.
Yeah, or less.
Less your 500 access.
Oh, and
So you get 14,500.
So.
And that's it.
Frank story. Where are you, Frank?
When we met Frank Richardson, a former jockey and now a pensioner, he'd just received a letter of refusal from Allianz.
I will never let them get me down.
No, that's it.
I fight. I'm going to fight until I run out of breath.
Mate, I'm going to kick them until their nose bleeds.
Yeah, I hope so too. And I hope I've got a size 6 shoe that'll moan that far.
You'll need one. There are ruined homes like this all over southeast Queensland. And in Arthur Sugden's case, the story is all too familiar. It's in the detail of his insurance policy. You know, that's the part most of us never read.
Now living downstairs, in what used to be his laundry, Arthur was shocked to find that he too has a limit on his flood coverage. $15,000 for the house and $15,000 for the contents.
There was no mention of it when I took the policy out, and there's no mention of it on the policy itself.
Are you kicking yourself for not reading that fine print?
Well, I mean, who reads a book? I mean, I read the policy, and that was all I was concerned with, and I thought that's all I had to read.
Is the insurance industry in Australia profitable at the moment?
Yes, it is profitable.
In which case, why are they being such hard-nosed bastards?
Well, it's a very leading question.
As Chief of the Insurance Council of Australia, it's Rob Whelan's job to shield insurance companies from the howls of anger.
This is this gentleman's insurance certificate. He turns to page 3 and it says storm, rainwater and flood.
Yes.
Do you think he believes that he's covered for flood now?
That's a summary.
Ah, here's the
That's
snake
not
in the grass.
policy document.
Here's the snake in the grass. He has to go to page 9 to then learn that in the event of storm, rainwater and flood, the insurance company is only going to pay for a maximum $15,000.
Yep.
A paltry $15,000. That's not disclosure, that's almost entrapment.
Well, I don't agree with that at all. That is disclosure. You have to read through the policy document, there's no doubt about that, to discover exactly what you're covered for.
There's a river down the road. They would have that information. Why do they sell him this policy for $15,000 when they know his whole life's in that house? That's a disgrace.
No, I don't. I think you're just using one example to try and trash the whole industry, and it's not fair.
Arthur got the bad news about his policy just as he and his family were tossing his entire life onto the footpath.
Actually, I told everybody to stop doing, cleaning the mess. I said, just leave it. We'll just leave it, and the government can have it. And I started to walk down towards the river, and
you were going to kill yourself.
The thought was there.
That's terrible, Arthur.
RACQ are doing nothing, and we are going to see people dying. People are going to take their lives.
There are so many stories of utter despair. Last week, depression overwhelmed Susan Willett and worried the life out of her husband, Jeff.
Jeff and I went to do some shopping. We had disagreement over something so minor.
A mobile phone.
I just walked out the shopping centre, walked into town. I walked to the train station.
What were you going to do?
I don't know. I just don't know.
I rang the young fella and I said, mate, we've got a serious problem. Mum's just shot through it. This is it. I've lost her. And I didn't know what to do.
People don't realise all this is going on, do they?
No, nobody can, and you can't explain to people how you feel and what's going through your head.
Mr. Whelan, there are marriage breakdowns, relationship pressures, even suicide. How do you live with yourself knowing that?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer, and I can't take personal responsibility for the way in which disasters affect people.
Well,
That's
why
the
not?
nature.
Why not? You're paid to personally represent these companies.
Yes, but that's what disasters do. That's what a catastrophe does to people.
And they don't need to be affected by another disaster from the insurance company, do they?
Well, the fact is that they don't have the insurance cover that they should, and that's the unfortunate fact.
Amidst all the sadness here, there's one very fired-up Queenslander who might make the insurance bosses come to their senses. He lost not one, but 2 members of his family, and just cannot believe that Australians running insurance businesses could be so mean-spirited in the wake of such a calamity.
Mate, that's it. It was a natural disaster. It'd be no different to the New Zealand earthquake. You haven't got any control over it.
John Tyson is talking about the remarkable downpour and flash flood in Toowoomba that swept away his partner of 30 years, Donna, and their son, Jordan.
I mean, we were only any normal family going about our business here that day. I mean, we just sat at this table here and, you know, and mate had a meal together, and, yeah, I mean, 1 hour later, mate, my whole life as I know it was changed forever.
Donna and their 2 sons were driving to the bank when a wall of water hit the family car.
The second it started, I thought, me, you know, Donna, you know, like, you know, I'm thinking driving in the rain, she can't drive normal. You know, that's what I was thinking, you know, I can driving on this, I hope she pulls up somewhere, you know.
But it wasn't to be. Rescuers later told how Jordan asked them to save his younger brother, Blake, first. By the time they came back for Jordan and his mum, both had perished. 12 weeks later, John Tyson's grief is compounded by the way his community is being treated by insurance companies.
I can't leave these people live in squalor. I can't leave them sleep in a house that's been condemned in a sleeping bag with mosquitoes and sandflies all over them. Like, that's ridiculous. We're in Australia. You know, we're not a third world country. You know, where's the Aussie spirit?
John's disgust runs so deep, he's refusing to even deal with his own insurance company, deciding to forfeit his right to a damages claim.
I hate the way their policies are, their code of ethics, the lack of honour. We're all Australian. I mean, what's going on here?
We've taken the criticism. We've listened to the consumer.
So you were wrong.
And we've said, OK, if you don't believe we've done a good enough job here, then we'll work harder to do it better.
So it's an admission that you've been wrong?
No, not wrong. It just hasn't been as clear as some people would like it to be.
So your message to all those struggling people in Queensland at the moment who haven't read all the weasel words in the fine print through to the end is read the document, you idiot.
No, it's not. I wouldn't call them that. It is terrible, and I feel very sorry for them. But I can't be in a position where we can just wave a magic wand and fix everything overnight. The fact is they had the wrong policies in the wrong circumstance.
Hi, I'm William, and I'm just annoyed that insurance won't pay out, and I live in town. I'm sleeping on a camp stretcher.
William Tarrant's tears aren't surprising when you see how this 10-year-old is living and how he goes to bed at night.
I noticed you had a little bit of trouble there. What were you trying to say?
I was just trying to get out. It's not only adults that are annoyed, it's kids are bored as well. We're bored, we're annoyed. We just want to get in back to our houses.
The federal government is trying to force the insurance industry to provide simple, readable policies so people know exactly what cover they're paying for. But that will be far too late for thousands of Queenslanders like Jeff and Susan Woollett, who are stuck with the policies they've got.
I'd like to know what the CEOs of some of these insurance companies would do if they were in my shoes, in my house, in this flood. I can bet you they wouldn't be going through the same crap as what they're putting everybody through now.
He was offered a job to go and teach Chinese civilian pilots Stan flies planes. It's a job.
Great group. From Top Gun fighter pilot to solitary confinement in an Australian jail.
This is a country coming after my husband. One man against the US.
Tonight on 60 Minutes.
The military is privy to secrets and they cannot trade those secrets away.
America says Daniel Duggan gave military secrets to China.
So you would say these pilots are cashing in on their own country?
It's a betrayal.
And must be punished.
So not a single other pilot has been charged?
No.
Only Dan?
Only Dan.
Why?
That's the million-dollar question.
But his family say he's no traitor.
This is one big mistake.
He's a hero.
There's a hole in my heart. I don't have my dad anymore. He's gone.
That's next on 60 Minutes.